St. Andrew United Methodist Church was beginning to get concerned about the immigrant community around us. Began organizing ESL classes. In fact, that's how I was attracted to St. Andrew. The congregation as a whole just welcomed this ministry. It would not have been possible without the support of the church. They provided me an office. They have allowed me the use of the office facilities, and they've been just a great encouragement. And they rejoiced with us when we've had victories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way immigration law works, family immigration law, is that a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident of the United States can petition for relatives, certain relatives. When the petitions are approved, then applications for permanent residency or the green card can be made. Then that puts the person on the pathway to U.S. citizenship, and we've done many, many U.S. citizenship applications. There are many undocumented immigrants here in the United States, possibly 12, 13 million. These immigrants are really the most vulnerable. Previously to 2001, if an undocumented immigrant, for example, married a citizen or even another or a permanent resident, that person could petition for the undocumented spouse. And the law then allowed the spouse to pay a $1,000 fine for their unlawful presence in the United States, but they still had a pathway to get to residency and citizenship. So family petitions that were filed before that date, April 30th, 2001, we can still do something. We can still apply for residency for that person. Any petition filed after April 2001, April 30th, unfortunately, that law expired, and our Congress hasn't deemed to renew it. The only way that we can help undocumented immigrants now, there are two ways that I can think of. One is what is called a U visa, a visa which allows a non-undocumented person who is the victim of a crime and who has cooperated with the police and the prosecutors in bringing the criminal to justice. With the petitioning of the police department or the prosecuting attorney, the immigrant can receive this U visa, and that puts them on the pathway to residency and ultimate citizenship. The other way is the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, where an undocumented person married either to a U.S. citizen abuser or a permanent resident abuser can self-petition, which means that a petitioner is not required, but can self-petition and be on the way to residency and U.S. citizenship. And we've had some U visa cases, and we've had some VAWA cases as well. Anyone who is undocumented in this country needs to live in the shadows. Living in the shadows is a fear of the authorities. So when anyone is stopped, for example, in a minor traffic issue, having a stoplight that's out, or not completely stopping at a stop sign, and especially when we have racial profiling going on. Definitely we have racial profiling, so it's very evident from statistics that Hispanic folks are stopped for traffic issues much more often than white Anglos. When that happens, the police will ask them for their driver's license, and of course they can't have a driver's license in the state of Illinois. So immediately their car is impounded, they're given a ticket. The local police actually have the authority now to detain these folks, take them into the police station, take their fingerprints, transmit those to ICE, and if they are undocumented, even they're put on ICE hold, which means that when the police department is finished with them for the issue that they were stopped for, the local police have to hold them for 48 hours to give ICE an opportunity to come and pick them up. And in many cases, they're sent off to a detention center that's far away from here, their families. Makes them very difficult to be able to contact their support network. And many times it happens with women that have children at home that are waiting for them. And so the implications of this for families is just incredible. And of course, they all are deeply aware of that possibility, but they have to drive. They have to go to the grocery store, they have to take their children to the doctor. So they're constantly in danger of being picked up and ultimately deported. So they live in the shadows.
Can you retrace that story?
This is a young man who was brought here as a child from Mexico by his mother and her husband. So basically, he had very little contact with his country. America was his home. America was his country. And yet, as he grew older and began to drive, he was stopped on several occasions without a driver's license, and paid fines, and worked for a pittance in terms of salary that would have to pay sometimes $300 or $400 to get his car out of the pound and to pay the fines and go to court and so forth. It turns out that his mother was the victim of domestic violence, and we were able to get to a petition for this. It's one of the few ways that an undocumented person can find immigration benefits. So we petitioned for her, it was approved, and he was 19 years old at the time and was included in the case as a derivative. She and he as well could apply to immigration for a work permit. And with the work permit, it's not a green card, but it makes you legal here in terms of being able to work with authorization, and with that benefit, you can apply and get a Social Security card. But for a person in his situation, just to have the Social Security card is a huge benefit, because it also allows him in Illinois to apply for a driver's license. So I went with him. He needed a car that would pass inspection. I went with him and let him use my car. And he took the test, passed the test, came out of the driver's license office with his driver's license. He was looking down at it, and he said to me, "For the first time, I can breathe in this country." Yes, this was my local state representative. he ran his campaign on the platform that he was anti-illegal immigrant, is the illegal word. He said he would be against the state of Illinois granting the benefit of a driver's license to an undocumented immigrant. We all know, and he knows very well, that these people have to drive. You can't live here in this country without driving. And they're driving without license. They're driving without testing. But the point is that these people have to drive, and I wrote a letter to my representative saying, you're putting yourself, your children, your wife, me in danger by not allowing our undocumented immigrants to have a driver's license. Yeah. Well, advocacy for immigrants can take place at different levels. It can take place right in our own communities. One of the things that we try to do is encourage Know Your Rights seminars for immigrant folks that are undocumented. Because the Constitution of the United States provides rights, for example, the right to remain silent is a right that applies to every person in the United States, not just citizens. Sometimes I have felt like, what can I do? I'm an isolated person. I don't have any great power. But if joining with others, we can be a strong force. And another thing that you can do is get to know your neighbors, your immigrant neighbors. There are two main areas that would be a huge benefit if the law would change. One would be the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act is an effort to provide a path to residency and citizenship to children that have been brought here. Another one is a law that's known by the code, the marker in the code for it. It's 245I. 245I was a law that allowed an undocumented immigrant who has a family member who is a citizen, or even not a citizen but a permanent resident had that benefit, could petition for an undocumented family member. And so God spoke to the farmers in ancient Israel and said, when you're cutting your wheat, if you miss some, don't go back and cut it. Leave it there for the stranger in your midst. Or the laws of gleaning in the Old Testament. And this is repeated over and over and over again in the Old Testament, that God says care for the stranger. We speak of the God of the Scriptures as the God of grace. Another word for grace is amnesty. The God of amnesty. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. If we want to use the I word, all of us are all of us are illegal. All of us need amnesty, forgiveness, grace, and we have it, through our faith, we have amnesty. So why we would want to close our hearts to granting amnesty to someone else, particularly someone that's not guilty of any crime, that wants to be a provider for his or her family. Why would we want to deny amnesty to a person like that? We have been very, very impressed with particularly the Old Testament commandments about caring for the foreigner, for the alien in your midst. In fact, I have this verse from Deuteronomy 10:17-19, which says that our God shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner, residing among you, giving them food and clothing. If our God that we serve loves the foreigner, can we hate the foreigner? Can we not respond to the needs of the foreigner? Well, I would encourage all of the churches to become more aware of the immigrants in their communities. So they're all around us and they have great needs. It's an opportunity for ministry. We are charged to love the immigrant. That's part of our mission. And the opportunity is right here. We don't have to go abroad to engage in this kind of ministry. And it brings a great blessing to be able to see the joy and the relief and the liberty that comes in the lives of these folks.